This week we're going to be discussing trade, and as you can see, the man beside me needs no introduction in Kenyan spaces, so he's going to be telling us more about Kenyan trade and where he sees Kenya positioning itself in terms of exports and new markets for Kenyan goods.
Take it away.
Like I mentioned before, the man beside me needs no introduction, Mr. Kiprono Kittany, Chairman of the Kenya National Chamber of Commerce and Industry. Karibu sana to KTN.
Thank you very much, Michael.
All right, just to get things started, is basically the kind of trade imbalance that Kenya seems to have at the moment. We're doing exports of about 531 billion, and we're doing imports of about 1.1 trillion shillings. Perhaps now from the Kenya National Chamber of Commerce and Industry, perhaps what are some of the issues that are arising where we're seeing this kind of imbalance creating that deficit?
First of all, Michael, we must recognize the fact that the trade imbalance is a historical issue. I mean, right from independence, we've always had deficit in terms of balance of trade. One of the things that the Chamber of Commerce has committed to do is to really work on increasing the value and the volume of Kenyan exports. And the way we can do this is through a multiple of initiatives, including additional value of Kenyan commodities. So we have worked and we partnered with the government in terms of its economic diplomacy agenda, and we're working hard to open new markets for Kenyan products.
Value addition is one of those things, like you rightfully said, is key to enhancing Kenyan goods, and it's something that over the years it doesn't seem to have gone that far. If you look at industries such as leather, even textile, that some of them collapsed, or even basic things like tea, we exporting wholesome tea and getting back blended. Perhaps what are some of the initiatives that, in your view, should be created to enhance this?
In the last 14 months, I want to say that the government has been on economic diplomacy really on the assault in terms of looking for new markets. And, for me, it presents a lot of opportunity for Kenyan companies, for producers of primary products of Kenyan goods. And I think one of the things that we need to do is to stop looking at Kenyan products purely as a commodity. We need to add value, we need to create brands around them. For example, if we looked at the coffee value chain, we've looked at what Ethiopia has done in terms of exploiting the value chain around coffee. And in Kenya, we still continue to export our coffee, in bulk, without adding value. And a quick assessment shows that we have up to 4,000% value addition on coffee. I mean, the cup coffee in Western Europe and in the Western world is 4,000 times more expensive, 4,000 percentage points higher than the commodity product in the ex-farm in Kenya. So we really need to look at how we can exploit our primary products. And one of the things that has happened is the government has led several trade missions overseas, and the main purpose of these trade missions has been to negotiate the tariffs, to create special status agreements in order to give our commodities easier entry into those markets.
Before you get to those trade missions, which I know you've been a part of with the president when he's been traveling out, in terms of that value chain, do you see people making the relevant kind of investments into certain sectors just to enhance, other than just having the farmer, the middleman, and the seller? Are you seeing people kind of investing in those kind of value addition factories and whatnot to enhance the value of our products?
You see, if you look at the geographical positioning of Kenya, we really have no choice but to do that. I mean, we are, the largest economy in the Eastern African Customs Union. We have a market size of about 138 million people just around us. So you see, if we don't really up our game and start to look at those markets seriously in terms of focus of how we can make sure that Kenyan goods are the goods of choice in those markets, then absolutely no way that we're going to bridge the balance of trade deficit. Of course, there is a new dynamic in that we have a discovery of oil in Kenya. And that, of course, when that gets online, then certainly there will be a huge shift in that paradigm. But again, there is every likelihood that we may go the Nigerian way. I mean, Nigeria today is the largest producer of oil in Africa, but still remains the largest importer in Africa. So for us, and I think the message President Jonathan gave to us when he came here last September is, as a country, don't lose what we are good at. Despite the fact that we may discover oil, we need to continue to do the things that we do and do them better, and really try to produce goods and services of a world class.
Talking about those trade missions, Nigeria, Qatar, Turkey, China, Russia, these are some of the countries that we've seen you and the president kind of tour in terms of looking for new markets. It's basically an assessment of the countries that you've been to. Is there anything in particular that you've been able to learn, and is there any concrete kind of resolutions that we made in terms of getting a new market for our goods?
Okay, let me just assess a few of the markets that we've been to. Yes, it is true that we've accompanied His Excellency the President, and in all of these missions we have had a sizable contingent of representation from the private sector. I mean, really the captains of industry, the people, the movers and shakers in our business community in Kenya. One of the things I would consider that intra-Africa trade is really the game changer. To me, Nigeria presents an extremely interesting prospect. I mean, if you look at the country, I mean, it's the largest economy in the continent of Africa, and there's very little volume of trade going on between the two countries. We're 4 hours away by air, and perhaps 7 or 8 hours by sea, I mean, less than a day by sea. So really, there's absolutely no reason why historically there hasn't been more trade between the two countries. I also see a huge synergy. I mean, when we went to Nigeria, we noted that they import their chicken from Brazil, their butter from New Zealand. So there's a lot of opportunity for Kenyans to really access that market. And Nigerians are also very sizable investors, and there is opportunity for them to come. And we have seen business players like Aliko Dangote come to Kenya and lay their stake in our economy as well. So I see a huge synergy between us and Nigeria. The other very interesting market is Ethiopia, a country that is enjoying a 9.2% GDP growth per annum, a population of close to 90 million people, really a country that's doing extremely well. One of the things that we noted from Ethiopia is that they changed their education system to focus more on the sciences. So they have more engineers and more doctors. They have more people who provide direct solutions to the economy. I think we need to actually seriously look at the possibility of doing the same. So we have less people coming out with the liberal arts degrees in arts and in economics, and more people who come out with tertiary skills that can be applied directly in the economy. So I would say the intra-Africa agenda is extremely important. I want to really laud the efforts of the President and the Minister Amina Mohammed. They have gone out of their way to create new opportunities for Kenya. When we went to Turkey, I mean, for example, we found out that Kenyan tea is levied a duty of 165%. And our President pitched very strongly to the Turkish government, and he requested for them to drop that tariff in order to give access to our commodities, more access to their markets. It is a matter that is in consideration, and I'm sure that it will go a long way. Qatar was also interesting because the government was able to negotiate, is continuing to negotiate agreements on liquid gas, liquefied nitrate gas. And I'm sure that sooner or later we will also hear that there has been a breakthrough in that respect. But by and large, if I was to give a summary of the entire effort around the economic diplomacy agenda, the intra-Africa trade to me presents a really exciting proposition.
Is that one of those situations where one hand we're all in one continent but no one seems to know what's going on, who has what, so that you can leverage and actually get goods at even a cheaper price? Because I mean, imagine buying chicken from Brazil isn't going to be the cheapest thing ever.
Well, I wouldn't want to speculate, but I almost think that maybe there was a colonial conspiracy to make sure that East doesn't speak to West, North doesn't speak to South. Because if you ask me, I mean, if you go to the Democratic Republic of Congo, if you go to Burundi, I mean, in Burundi even in Rwanda, you will find that a lot of commodities are imported from France, from Belgium, and we're right next door to them. So really, I think it's for us to take advantage of the customs union that we have signed in the 5 countries of the East African region, and also to look inwards at our businesses. Are we producing goods? Are we producing services of a world class? Are we able to, get our Bureau of Standards to really look critically inwards at our value chains and our manufacturing sector to see that we actually do produce goods that will be able to access these markets and capture the imagination of consumers in this market. I want to also say that there's been a lot of effort by our government to reduce the cost of power. The government is committed to reducing the current cost of power from $18 per kilowatt hour to about 9 or 10, which will be a very good and effective platform. But we must remember that we are up against countries like Ethiopia that are producing power at probably 50% at what we aspire to do. So from a competitive standpoint, we still have a huge challenge, but I do believe that with other synergies that we have, like our really well-skilled and well-educated labor force, we'll be able to still find a niche for ourselves in the market.
Yeah. But just looking at the quality of our imports as well, some of the things that we import are actually very high consumer kind of value goods. Isn't there a possibility perhaps then we can be able to create industries around some of the goods that we have to actually make them even more competitive, create that kind of brand Kenya kind of identity where our Kenyan goods become more valuable than imported goods, so that we can actually even bring our import bill slightly lower than it is currently?
Do you mean more valuable or less valuable?
More as in terms of Kenyan goods having a higher value of Kenyan goods than actually importing something like orange juice from South Africa and what have you.
I think you're right. I mean, we need to have really focus on the intrinsic value that we see and derive from our commodities. Let me just give you an interesting one. When we went Turkey, when we got into the meeting with the business community there, the first thing they asked us is they said, "We are told that you Kenyans don't even dress yourselves." And honestly, it was a bit embarrassing because in the evening when we went to, sort of discuss what had happened during the day, the deliberations, we looked at ourselves and said, yeah, I mean, look at all these Kenyan business people. We are all in Italian suits and English shirts and American ties and etc. And really, I think the logical starting point is to start to celebrate our own, to find our own products and to really look at them as being of value to ourselves. And actually, and I do believe that we did have a nascent textile industry. We had a very strong value chain around cotton, and I don't see any reason why we cannot produce our own, celebrate our own, in the same way that Ethiopia does, the same way that Nigeria does. I really think that for a very long time we probably took on the values of other people too far stronger than we looked at appreciating what is ours.
We've seen 3 billion shillings going into the textile and leather industries. Any likelihood, because we saw like from the recent trip in Ethiopia, I mean, leather industry there is huge, and I think they've gotten that culture of appreciating their own. But do you think the initiative to kickstart some of these industries is well timed?
I think so, but then I don't think we need to look at it purely from industry. We need to look at it in terms of the value chain. You see, like if we look at textile, for example, it's not really textile industry. It is the value chain. It is from the farm to attire, and the industry is only in the middle. I mean, we shouldn't look at it in terms of in isolation of the value chain. So I think what is going on right now in the country is we are focusing more on value chains. The Ministry of Industrialization and Investment is doing a lot, and we saw last week the CS Aden appointed a committee to look at the leather value chain, and it's really to look at these things holistically and to try and see what it is that we can do that gives us a competitive advantage as a country, and absolutely no reason why we cannot up our game in those industries. I mean, I just talked about the East African Customs Union. I mean, the population size in this is about 140 million. I mean, in Kenya alone, we have a population of probably 45 million people. Why must we import? I mean, we need to actually be able to see how we can extract value from these commodities.
Just looking, even just going back to kind of our exports, looking at our basket of goods, what we have. I know tea is huge, horticulture is huge, perhaps there's another industry therein, but just looking at the basket that we have, is there any more things, are there more things that we can add and actually prop up our export value?
I would say I go back again to value addition. I mean, we do have the basic commodities. The one thing that we need to do is perhaps to really look at productivity critically. I mean, if we look at, for example, the dairy sector, I mean, what is the average production per cow in Kenya? I know that it is, it's probably in the region of 6 or 7 liters per animal per day. The global leader in dairy production is Israel. That's doing 38. That's about 7 times, 6 or 7 times what we are producing. So I think we need to look at productivity very, very critically. We need to look at standardization. We need to look at, also what I talked about earlier, value addition. So to me, it is productivity. And we also need to look at labor productivity in the country. We have a very strong work ethic, but are we producing at par with some of the leading economies of this world? I mean, I looked at a country like Turkey. I mean, they had very, very small industry. Like us, they were talking about 1 million tourists for the longest while. Today, they have 38 million tourists. So I think, just apart from the fact that we go there and we look at these markets and we negotiate entry into these markets, there's also the lessons to be learned. I mean, I asked myself a good question. Why is it that we have 1 to 2 million tourists for, so we've been talking, those figures have been bandied
over and
over again. Why aren't we asking ourselves, why can't we have 38 million tourists? I mean, Turkey has 38 million tourists today. And they create hype around even the smallest attraction.
Yeah.
And if you look at Kenya, for example, we are so well endowed. We're so well endowed. I mean, I asked myself, when was the last time I went to Masai Mara? And it's probably 15 years ago. The migration's on now. Why can't we get more Kenyans to go there and see the migration? I think we probably just need to really look critically at our core industries and ask ourselves fundamental questions about why we cannot do things that will really increase or improve our economic activity.
Right. Just coming back down to the Kenya National Chamber of Commerce and Industry, for a very long time it remained dormant. Then we saw the rise of the likes of the Kenya Private Sector Alliance. Perhaps you've been there for about 2 years now, is it?
It's just over a year.
Just over a year.
Yes.
Perhaps what are some of the things that you're doing to kickstart the Kenya National Chamber of Commerce? Because back in the day, remember, it used to be one of those powerful entities that had to do with everything and anything to do with the trade in this country, but it seems to have lost that touch over the time.
Michael, I could talk about this all morning, so I'll try and limit myself.
It needs to be a thesis also, it needs to be a point of discussion in university.
Yes, okay. Basically, we took over a decrepit institution. We took over an organization that had gone through years of mismanagement, years of being unable to fulfill its agenda. And, in the first year that we've been in office, we've been able to do quite a lot. We've been able to attract donor funding, and we were able to retrench the entire establishment. We had staff that were operating on arrears of up to a year, and we were able to get everybody paid, including their terminal dues. We went to the market and advertised positions, and we were able to hire a secretariat of 17 people, top people who came in through a competitive process. We relocated our offices to Heriton House, and if you come there now, you will see that we are offering world-class services to our members. Then back to its core functionality. I mean, the chamber was incorporated as a company limited by guarantee in 1965. And in the first years after independence, it did a very good job. It was really in the center of the private sector agenda. But through the 90s and into the 2000s, I mean, the chamber went into complete collapse. Yeah. And I'm glad and I'm proud that I've been part of the team of people that have really turned this institution around to be able to take it back to its original course and its original mandate. So we are offering certificates of origin. We were able to negotiate that back from government. We are offering membership services. We are doing advocacy for our members. We are now working on our county structures. I mean, the chamber is unique in the sense that it is both international and devolved. We are in all 47 counties of this country. In fact, we are right now presently in 42 of the 47 counties. Right. And we are part of a global network in 177 countries. So it is really a very, very useful, very fundamental, very key institution to economic progress. And if we look at the countries that have really made significant economic strides, the Singapores of this world, they've done it through partnerships between the private sector and the public sector. And it is correct, yes, that in the absence of the chamber, very many other business membership organizations came up. We have the Private Sector Alliance, of which I am a member of the board. We have Association of Manufacturers, we have the United Business Association. And I believe, Michael, that there is a room for all these bodies. Yeah. There's a room for an umbrella organization like KEPSA, who've been very good at convening, the high-level conversation with government, and we don't need to reinvent that wheel. But on economic diplomacy, on trade, on membership services, on advocacy in a devolved government, a devolved environment, it is really the forte of the chamber. And it is a forte that we intend to service very, very effectively. I would say without fear of contradiction that in the East African region, the Kenya National Chamber of Commerce is the foremost business membership organization in the private sector.
So it's a matter of making Kenya National Chamber of Commerce and Industry the point of call for anyone who wants to do business with Kenya.
Absolutely.
But just coming back to the number of bodies that have actually sprung up, and you saying that there's scope for all of it, isn't there perhaps a need to create certain structures or guidelines for everyone to compete, for everyone to do certain things so that you don't seem to be replicating the wheel, as it were? Because I think that's one of the issues that can be detrimental to the rise of the chamber. I wouldn't think so, because I mean, if you look at the Association of Manufacturers, they super serve manufacturing.
If you look at the Private Sector Alliance, I mean, they're an umbrella body. I mean, their job really, and I always have argued this, is that they need to do more by doing less.
Yeah.
I mean, for them, I think their interest would be to see that their BMOs are doing the work that they should be doing. If you look at the United Business Association, they have their niche. So then there are sectoral bodies. And for me, for as long as we're all working towards similar objectives, I don't see, there isn't any cause for concern.
And is there a thought of changing the kind of structure the chamber has? Because I think before there used to be some regional heads everywhere, that it created so many heads of different sections. Perhaps is there, even as you devolve to different counties, is there a position where you're going to be talking in only one voice, but talking in the language of those 47 counties?
You see, in terms of the chamber movement, we are the national office is the umbrella body. But in every county, there is a structure that replicates what there is in the national office.
Yeah.
And that structure is both useful as it is relevant, because they need to engage the county government. Good example, if you go to Transoya, if you go to the coast, Mombasa County, we've been the business membership organization that has convened the roundtable discussions that negotiates the finance bill with the county governments. And we are looking to do that in all the 47 counties. So really, we will be the point of reference to negotiate, to ensure that the county governments also create policies, economic policies, and tariff structures that don't make business, that create an environment that is good for doing business. Otherwise, I mean, we've seen it in the past year of devolution. If we are not vigilant and proactive in that respect, then you get a situation where, you know, the county governments, in trying to fulfill their budgetary requirements, will impose all sorts of levies and taxes that then make us, you know, lose our ranking in terms of ease of doing business. Yeah. You know that 2 years ago, Kenya went from number 115 to 138 in terms of ease of doing business index, and it's an index that the president is personally monitoring to see that we are going down. And I do believe that we have gone down again this year, and we've gone up in the sense that we've improved. And we must work very closely, and that's why it is necessary to have that devolved structure working in resonance with the national office.
Let's talk about ease of doing business. When you go to a place like Rwanda, everything is housed in one building. I can't remember the name in full, but it was Rwanda Economic something, Business Center or something like that. But you find everything that you need to do. If you wanted to start a business and you needed power, you needed banking, you needed anything. Perhaps, are you willing to take that mandate and house some of these functions at your office?
Oh, we are looking to negotiate with government to also, you know, render some of the services that they do offer. I mean, like we've seen in Mauritius, for example. In Mauritius, the Chamber of Commerce are the ones who process the VAT refunds. It's very effective, it works very, very well, and they become an agent of government. So we've proposed to the county government in Nairobi, and we will be proposing to the national treasury that we could offer, you know, some services on their behalf, and really, but I do believe that the government is working hard to improve its services. I mean, we've seen the Ways of Fund under the Ministry of Devolution. It's a game changer. I mean, and they must be commended. But having said that, you know, we can do more, and we need to do more. We shouldn't be satisfied with where we are.
In the spirit of revamping, what other kind of services are you looking to offer that were not there prior to the kind of restructuring that is going at the Chamber of Commerce?
Right now, we are focusing on trade facilitation, and we have a very, very strong trade arm in the Chamber, and they do a lot of analysis. They do, you know, they render a service to the business community. This week, we've been working on a proposal for Nestle, and we're doing a lot in terms of the trade agenda. One of the things that we are planning in the next year is to offer commercial services. We think that the Chamber would be excellently placed to have its own college, a business college. Yeah. So we'd like to have a college that you know, trains people and offers certificates, diploma certificates in business. The same happens in other jurisdictions, in Mauritius, in France, and we have no doubt that we could offer very, very good courses in business, and also other, you know, commercial services that will improve the bottom line. We are a company not for profit, but we certainly are not averse to
charitable.
As well. We also have a lot of plots, and we have a building in the CBD, Ufanisi House. We are looking to refurbish that. We are looking to develop our plots in Thika, and really create a very, very strong institution. We want to be a one-stop shop where you can come for market analysis, business plans, research. We want to organize a lot of our own independent missions. We want to continue to work with government in the state visits, and etc. So the future is bright.
I hear there are plans to have a kind of national revamp this Friday. Are those true?
Yes, indeed. We are hoping that His Excellency the President will come to relaunch the chamber on Friday. It's a date that we have looked forward to for a very long time. We have visitors in the country already from Russia, from Ethiopia, from Uganda, and we expect that more are going to come and join us on Friday. We are rebranding the chamber with a new set of new logo, new set of clothes, a new agenda, new business plan. So for me, I'd like to say that it's the right time for all the people in business to seriously consider coming back to the chamber. Let's build that institution so that we can look into the future together.
Mr. Kiprono Kittany, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Michael.
All right. Yeah. Smart, Jory?
Well, I just wanted to find out from Mr. Kiprono, as of now, we see that the situation in South Sudan is not that welcoming, especially for a number of Kenyans who want to do business there. But at the moment, how much are we exporting to South Sudan?
I wouldn't have the exact figure, but then we are very concerned that a lot of Kenyan businesses in South Sudan are in a situation where they have resources there, but they're having a big challenge in terms of repatriating their funds back to Kenya to continue their trading activity. So it is a matter that we've raised with government, and we are also in conversation with the Kenya Bankers Association. We would like to see that there is a flow of goods and a flow of services to and from South Sudan, but I wouldn't have the exact figure of the volume of business.
Great.
For me, just one quick question. Facing east or west?
I would say we face all around us.
Intra-Africa. So Doreen, the next time you want to...
But charity begins at home, so let's
face Africa.
Yes.
Face home.
So Doreen, when you want to bring in that shipment of yours of bananas, I think...
From Uganda, I need to channel it through.
Right, great. We've been talking to Kiprono Kittany, and we've been discussing all matters business, talking about economics, how our businesses can make money, how our businesses, should invest, looking at investments and how our government, out there is trying to negotiate for us. Well, don't go too far, because when we come back after the break, I'll be talking to Dr. Paula Kahumbu, and you've been asking questions already on Twitter, and we'll be talking quite honestly about our challenges of conservation in this country today. If you have a question, please tweet us at KTN Kenya, at James Smart,
at Joy Doreen Bira.